The Dallas Cowboys. Last season, the Dallas Cowboys went 6-10. They tied with the New York Giants for second place in the NFC East. Dak Prescott got injured. Now, when you look at Dak Prescott's injury, everybody questioned how important was he to this team, and last season showed you everything that you need to know about his importance, which is why I was saying that the Cowboys needed to sign him to a long-term deal. Everybody's trying to say Dak Prescott's overrated, Dak Prescott isn't all that great. Well, we saw what happened last year, ladies and gentlemen. Dak Prescott went down, and the season for Dallas went down in the drain as well with Dak Prescott. Now, I want to talk about my swing games for the Dallas Cowboys. I have two of them. Week 11 against Kansas City on the road, and Week 16 against the Washington football team. Now, I have that Kansas City Chiefs game circled on the schedule for Dallas because I think that this is going to be the game that we're going to figure out how good Dallas defense is going to be this year. Now, I don't like to judge teams based on what they do the first couple of weeks in the year because, as we already know, how good a team starts out may not be how good a team finishes. A good example for this is the Pittsburgh Steelers last year. They started out really good and they crashed and burned down the stretch. And I think the same can be said when it comes to trying to figure out how good the Dallas Cowboys defense is going to be this year. I think that around week 11, we should have a good idea of if this defense is going to be improved or will this defense continue to be bad. And I think a good test would be against Kansas City, a team that has a lot of firepower on offense. They have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. You have Patrick Mahomes, the best QB in the game right now. So I think that this is going to be a good test that if you are a Dallas fan and determining how good your defense is going to be. Week 16 against Washington is another marquee matchup that you have to look out for because this game pretty much could decide the division. And Washington and Dallas, they already face off a couple of weeks prior. They face off in week 14. So then you face off a couple of weeks later, in this game, with it coming down the final stretch of the year, could end up deciding who ends up winning this division. I think the two best teams so far in this division are the Cowboys and Washington. So those are my two swing games for Dallas. For those of you guys who don't know what swing games are not important games, but they are games that when the season ends, you're going to be like, okay, if we would have won this game, our season probably would have went this way. Or if we would have lost this game, then our season probably would have went this way. So swing games kind of are games that I think have a big impact on how the tone of the season goes for said team. I think those are the two big swing games for Dallas. Best case scenario for the Dallas Cowboys this year, I have them at 11-6. If Mike McCarthy can have this team playing up to the level of talent that they have, I think that this team should be looking at a wild card berth. And they could be a really terrifying team to face that if you have to face them in the playoffs this year, because everybody tries to make it seem like the Dallas Cowboys aren't one of the most talented rosters in the NFL. Like I was arguing with my guy Juice Alert a couple of days ago about this. I tried to tell him that Dallas has one of the best rosters top to bottom in the NFL. They suffered a lot of injuries last season. Of course, we know what happened to Dak Prescott. The offensive line was kind of banged up, and the defense just completely underperformed. But if Mike McCarthy can get this thing turned around and everybody's playing up to the level of talent, then I think Dallas definitely could end up going 11-6. That definitely is the best case scenario for Dallas. And their schedule isn't all that difficult. I mean, the first half is, but I think in the second half, it gets kind of lax. The first half, you have to play the Bucs to open the season, the Chargers on the road. Then you have to face the Philadelphia Eagles, Carolina. Those aren't tough games, but I definitely think Carolina is a little bit of a sleeper team that a lot of people are sleeping on. Then you look at the Giants. You got to face the Patriots on the road. Then, coming off a bye week, things kind of slowed down for you. You face Minnesota, Denver, Atlanta. Then you got to face Kansas City, which is probably the toughest game that you have at this point. And then everything pretty much is smooth sailing for the most part. You face New Orleans. That could be difficult. Yeah, you face the Raiders. But your first half schedule isn't going to be as easy as what you have to close out the season. So I think the best case scenario for the Dallas Cowboys is going to be 11-6. If Mike McCarthy can get this team playing good and he can show everybody that he's a good coach, or at least an average coach, then this team definitely should be in the playoffs. But the worst case scenario for Dallas is 8-9. I think with Dak Prescott and how improved they are on defense, this team should at least win 8 games. I think Dak should be the lower part of the spectrum for Dallas. At best, they're an 11-win team. At worst, I think this is an 8-win team because this team just has too much talent to just crash and burn. Now, even if Mike McCarthy isn't a great coach, like, I think he should at least win 8 games. Like, you have to be the worst coach in NFL history to not be able to win at least 8 games with how much talent is on this team. Now, of course, you have concerns about the defense. Yeah, you brought in a lot of guys at linebacker. You drafted Michael Parsons. You had Jabril Cox. You bring in Keanu O'Neal. You also bring in Dan Quinn, the former head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, to be your defensive coordinator. So the Dallas Cowboys have went all in on the defense. But what if those changes and the guys you brought in are not enough? Now, the offense is going to be really good. We know that. They should have one of the best offenses in the NFL this year. But we don't know in particular how good that defense is going to be, which is why I think there's a good chance that they could go 8-9. Now, my overall record prediction for Dallas this year is going to be 9-8. I think that Dallas is capable of making the playoffs, but you guys know how I roll in this channel. I don't care how much talent you have on your team if you don't have a capable head coach. I don't know if Mike McCarthy is the right guy in Dallas. I don't know if Mike McCarthy is going to be the guy who can get this team into the playoffs, because for over the last decade, Dallas hasn't missed the playoffs because of a lack of talent, which is what people fail to realize. They have missed the playoffs because of coaching. And if you don't have the coaching set in place, then your talent doesn't matter. Nick Saban told Bill Belichick that it doesn't matter how much talent you have on your roster if the coach can't get those guys in the right position to succeed. And that stands true to this day, because you look at what Jason Garrett did his last season. They underachieved with a incredible roster. You look at what happened with Freddie Kitchens with the Cleveland Browns, who he also had a really talented roster. So you look at Mike McCarthy, I just don't know if he's that guy to get Dallas into the playoffs. Like, 9-8 may be good enough to backdoor your way in, to get that last seed, that 7th seed. But overall, I just think that Dallas is a fringe playoff contender until Mike McCarthy can show me otherwise. And I do have the right to have reservations about Mike McCarthy. I don't think this is outlandish and whatnot. I know Dallas Cowboy fans are going to come on here and say, JT, we have so much talent. And I understand that. I understand that. But talent doesn't win games. Coaching plus talent is what wins games. And that's what I think a lot of people fail to realize in this day and age of the NFL. So I have 9-8. Like I mentioned, best case scenario for Dallas, 11-6. Worst case scenario for the Dallas Cowboys, 8-9. My overall prediction is 9-8.